Welcome back to the Your Illini Nation Tip-Off Show. Derek Piper from Illini Inquirer joining us to help break it all down. And Derek, we'll start with this. Illinois men's and women's basketball both got a lot to be excited for Illini Nation right now.
Absolutely. A great time for both programs, really. Shauna Green last year really putting her stamp on that program in year one, and a lot of fun bringing back Makira Cook and company. It's a situation where it's interesting. You don't often see that team ranked, let alone ranked above the men's team, who's on a nice run of their own in terms of NCAA tournament appearances, high expectations. So a lot to look forward to for Illini fans to get over to State Farm Center and see some really meaningful and competitive basketball, and hopefully filling out 2 brackets in March. That'd be a lot of fun.
No doubt about it. We did that last year. Hope we can do that again this year. Both programs win their exhibition game. Not a surprise there for the women. But I don't know how many people had pegged the men to beat #1 Kansas. What's your biggest takeaway from that? I thought the Illini looked very good.
They did. I think they're playing really well as a team right now. I think offensively there's been a lot of concentration on the point guard position, but I think the way that Marcus Domask is used as a playmaker, passing the ball, Coleman Hawkins still, of course, playing with the ball in his hands quite a bit and making good decisions. And when Terrence Shannon is going to play like a star, a guy that looked like an All-American, 28 points, a game high, him and Kevin McCullough had a nice one-on-one back-and-forth battle throughout that one. So we've seen the high points of Terrence Shannon. UCLA last year, Texas in overtime. When he plays like that, Illinois can beat anybody. And I think if you're able to get that, channel that in an NCAA tournament environment, maybe it pushes you an extra round or two onto a Sweet 16, which this program needs, has been wanting for a long time, maybe even a Final Four. But a lot of depth, veteran experience. I mean, the lineup they had down the stretch of that game, closing it out. Coleman Hawkins is a 4-year senior. He's the youngest guy on the court for the Illini. You got 24-year-old Guerrier, Domask and Shannon, 23, Harmon, 22. Just like the veteran presence of this team. And so far, it's still early, but the way they're coming together and playing well right now.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a lot of Terrence Shannon putting up 20-plus points. That's not a surprise. We saw that last year. Is he going to get to 28 every game? I'm not sure about that. But for me, it was the other guys, to see them on the court, how that gel worked together, that camaraderie, that teamwork. And I left pretty impressed seeing guys like Quincy Guerrier down the stretch, all that experience, seeing guys like Coleman not have to have this structured randomness that he talked about last year with the ball in his hands and trying to make decisions. Felt like he was more natural. How did you assess some of those complementary pieces there along with Terrence? We know what that's going to be, but those other guys gelling with him.
Yeah, Guerrier, especially late down the stretch, being able to get to the basket. I mean, he shot 10 free throw attempts, and he's a physical guy. I mean, he's built like he could play defensive end, maybe some tight end, and he's 24. And his aggressiveness, that was something that I honestly didn't expect to see as much of. He became a reliable, decent catch-and-shoot guy at Oregon. Know he can hit the glass and rebound, but if he can add that dynamic to this offense of being someone that can drive into the lane, draw some contact, that was certainly huge. I mean, he scored 8 straight points at one point down there late in the second half. Justin Harmon, he's kind of a gritty, I don't want to call him Andres Feliz yet. That's a high bar to live up to, but I do think he's one of those just do whatever it takes to win. A guy's been around the block a few times, and he's just going to do whatever in terms of rebounding, effort plays, and that cut down the lane late in the ball game. Coleman finds him from the mid-post. I mean, that's just a feel play, a veteran play that Illinois didn't have a whole lot of last year in terms of moving them without the ball. Hey, a cut down the lane, that's a legal play. You wouldn't know if you watched Illinois basketball last season. But yeah, Coleman too. I just Brad's talked about simplifying the game. A pick and pop. He's a tough matchup at the 5. Hunter can't really get out there and guard him, and there's going to be, Zach Edey will struggle with that as well. If he can just in rhythm catch and shoot those shots at the top of the key, he makes 3 of those. That really puts defenses in a bind, opens up the lane for Terrence, for Ty Rodgers, who scored early. So I think, yeah, just collectively guys chipping in, and that's the great thing about a deep roster is it can be somebody else's night, on given nights. Maybe Luke Goody didn't play that well. Maybe one night he steps up and makes 3 or 4 threes. When you've got depth, it can be a situation where others can step up when maybe Terrence doesn't make 5 threes in a game, and you're able to supplement that and get it from other places.
Yeah, and I felt good about Marcus Domask and what he was able to show there as well. A compliment to Luke Goody. Domask starts, Goody comes off the bench. If you can get those 2 shooters together, you've got a really deep bench there if Luke Goody can get back to what we thought he could do, really last year hampered by injury. But his freshman year, what he showed is a flash. Yeah,
you need those guys. They're going to lean heavily on those to be knockdown shooters. You need it because really outside of those, now Coleman and Terrence shooting it really well against Kansas. They've kind of been streaky shooters throughout their careers. But in terms of Luke Goody as that catch-and-shoot guy, I mean, he should giving some quality looks, be in the 40% range as a three-point shooter. That's a lot of value, and also a guy that is just a high IQ player that trusts to be in the right spots. And Marcus Domask, I know at SIU was really the 1A in terms of the scouting report. Guys sending probably double teams at him. Now to free him up a little bit, probably get some more open shots. And he's another one that I love his feel for the game, the way he moves without the ball, the way he can pass. And he was also another one that really between the three transfers, Guerrier, Harmon, and Domask, like, they combined for 8 of Illinois' 13 offensive rebounds. So guys that knew where to be on the glass, gave that extra effort, and so far seem like very selfless guys that want to win. We're talking about Domask and Harmon in particular have yet to play in an NCAA tournament. They're going to want to do whatever they can to make sure they're there in March.
All right, so it's all good vibes when they beat #1 Kansas, but the game doesn't count. Let's remember that. I've had several people ask me, well, is this going to improve their ranking? No, it's not. This game does not matter at the end of the year. Now, I think Illinois will probably keep it on the schedule there at the top, just like because, you beat #1 Kansas, but it is a scrimmage. They're still concerned. So what are things here you're looking at that Illinois has to improve upon and grow upon on this schedule? They're going to get a whole month of November at home. Plenty of chances to do that.
Free throw shooting is still something that comes to a lot of people's minds. When you play a lot of close games, as you do in the Big Ten, you got to be able to step up at the line and make those. They got a number of guys. I mean, it's a big reason why Ty Rodgers wasn't on the floor late in that game against Kansas, is because if you foul him and you put him on the line, there's a good chance that he's not going to make enough of those, and obviously teams can make comebacks through that. And just sticking with Ty and kind of the point guard position in general, I think for the most part against Kansas, Illinois moved the ball and was able to run their offense. I mean, they had some really beautiful stretches of unselfish basketball, swinging around the perimeter and getting guys open shots. But there's some other times you could tell Illinois doesn't have that prototypical point guard out there to make some other people better. And I think especially you get late in games with leads, how can you close games without having a experienced point guard? Because teams usually turn up the heat defensively. Illinois can kind of get caught in some situations where you're deep in the backcourt without that pure ball handler. I think that's still kind of yet to be figured out. And I'd be remiss if I'm going to say just because Illinois made threes against Kansas doesn't mean it won't be a problem throughout the season, because last year, obviously, it was something that really hindered them, and until proven otherwise, I think three-point shooting is still something that, until they show they're consistent with it, could be something that pops up throughout the season. What
have you made of just this era? Certainly, the Illini Nation wants more. When you don't make it to a Sweet 16 since 2005, there is that hunger there. Yet there's also this middle ground, Derek, of this has been the most successful Big Ten program for Big Ten Conference victories the last 4 years. They've won a couple of Big Ten titles. How do you view that from the outside of what they are?
You've got to have some nuance into it. I know that fans sometimes want to make it absolute. You're either going to plant your flag on one side or the other. That Brad deserves to be on the hot seat, some would say, because you're going early exits in March, and it hasn't been a situation when you're playing good basketball then. And then obviously others. I think it's important to have the context of where the program was when John Gross left it and Brad comes in and takes over. The ability to get talent. I mean, the recruiting has been as good in terms of a window for Illinois basketball really since early 2000s when Bill Self was here. And like you said, I mean, the fact to win a Big Ten regular season championship, a Big Ten tournament championship, to get a 1 seed, even though you didn't capitalize on that as much as you would have liked, is still a big deal. So I do think there deserves to be some pressure on wanting more and demanding more in the tournament. I personally believe that, that's where your seasons are defined. I think for the most part, I think that it's okay to lean into that and understand the pressure of it. You talk about Tom Izzo's greatness. Are you talking about his regular season record? Are you talking about how many Final Fours he's been to? The best of the best are defined by what they do in those moments. So I think that Brad is right in terms of we just got to keep getting back there. But let's be honest, this team does need that Sweet 16 to take the pressure off. That's why they built an old roster that should be ready for those moments. So I think it's okay to be very, very happy with what Brad's done, because I think he's done a great job, but at the same time be wanting more in the future, because if they don't get that monkey off their back, the whispers will only get louder and louder.
What are we going to find out here really by the start of the new year, I should say? November, you got all these home games. You guys are going to get Marquette, top 25 program in here. We get to December, and Derek, man, this gets really tough really quick. So what are we going to learn about this team, let's say, by Jan 1?
Well, I mean, December, it's going to heat up hot in a hurry. I mean, the fact of going to Rutgers, I know their roster is going to be down. They lost quite a bit, but still playing at the RAC, a tough place to play. FAU in the Jimmy V Classic, a team that went to the Final Four last year, brought back pretty much everybody. They got really good guard play, a lot of cohesion, so I think it's going to be a good test out there at Madison Square Garden. And Tennessee is a great defensive squad, a team that's projected in the top 10. So those challenges, I think, big picture is going to show how well Illinois is able to put the pieces together early, have guys kind of settle into roles. And I think also just to see, it's easy right now to love the chemistry, to love the buy-in, love the fact that, we're all about winning. What happens when certain guys on that bench don't get the minutes they want? Is there some strife in the locker room? Is there some chirping going on about, hey, I want more? Yes, it was great to say I want to go to the March Madness and whatever, but if I don't get my minutes, then all of a sudden I'm getting disgruntled. I think last year you saw some of the selfish interests start to rear their ugly head, and it obviously pulled people apart. Can they avoid that this year while also being able to put some marquee wins on their resume? They'll have those opportunities. I think just kind of the overall vibe of how much of a collective, tight-knit team this is, we'll learn that here within the next couple of months.
For me, that's exciting to see because, yes, you want wins for a program, that's for sure if you're a fan, but from our outside perspective, I want to see what this team is made of. They're a deep team. They've got the potential. A lot of people on paper projecting them to go a long way. Certainly the ranking shows that, preseason top 25. But let's see it. That's why you got to do it. Brad says he wants to play the tough games too, and I love that. From someone on the outside here, just let's see how they can do. And games against lower level non-Power 5 teams don't do it for me as much. Even if you might lose some games in there.
No, I think that's completely fine. I think Brad's fine with having those tests, understanding you might take a loss, at Tennessee and whatnot. I mean, the opportunity, though, the great part of it is if you lose those games, they're not going to hurt your resume. They're not going to look as bad losses on your resume. Now, you don't want to, if you lose Marquette and Tennessee and FAU, all of a sudden maybe you come out of the non-con without the kind of records you want, but it is giving you the opportunity to put quad ones on there. And then just to see teams that you could meet up with in the tournament down the road or just – in terms of caliber. I mean, Marquette, Tennessee, FAU, these are all teams that can go on deep runs. Illinois, of course, wants to show that they can do the same thing. They did in a one-game sample size against Kansas. Of course, it doesn't count, but I think that's something that you want to find out. You want to find out what your team's made of. It teaches you a lot in terms of what you have to work on and kind of where you are at. And then just being battle tested because you're going to get tested in the Big Ten as well. Just, you play Purdue twice. You play Michigan State twice. I think one thing, and I'm not going to argue with Illinois fans after what they saw against Kansas, are we sleeping on the fact that Illinois maybe should be more of a thought of a Big Ten title contender against Purdue and Michigan State? Now, they're projecting the top 5. It's not like they're completely off the radar, but maybe with the depth they have, the talent. They're the only team in the league that has 2 projected NBA draft picks right now in Terrence Shannon Jr. and Coleman Hawkins. If those guys can lead you along with the role pieces, maybe this team can win another league title. But I think it's within their possibilities. All
right, we'll leave you with this, Derek. Let's give 3 things Illinois will be successful this season, however you want to define success, if they do what?
I think you got to shoot the 3 well enough. I think that you're going to find teams, if you don't find that consistency from beyond the arc, it's going to be hard. You're going to get clunky possessions in the half-court. Teams are going to clog the lane. I think you got to be able to make some shots. So Coleman's improvement from 3 is huge. Terrence being a little bit more consistent, and obviously, like we talked about, Marcus Domask, Luke Goody. Ball handling. It doesn't necessarily have to be traditional point guard. I think sometimes we think about point guard play as Ayo Dosunmu in a ball screen 95% of the possessions. But just the ability to share the ball, make people better. You can get playmaking from different spots. Marcus Domask, Coleman Hawkins, Terrence Shannon, still Ty Rodgers. So I think that the ability to see the floor, make good decisions, and just kind of have that flow that last year never established for Illinois offensively, can that still come into fruition, even though they didn't go out and get a big transfer as far as the point guard goes? And I think rebounding is a big thing for this team, too. I think they got an opportunity to have the physicality and the rebounding of a veteran team. So if they're able to beat teams on the glass, that can help with some nights when you don't make jump shots. You get on the offensive glass, able to get offensive rebounds, you usually get fouled on a lot of those opportunities. So I think I look for guys like Gary A coming. I mean, he was an all-ACC player at Syracuse for a good reason. A lot of it was his rebounding production. Of course, you've got the ability of some other guys like Domask. Goody can go in there and put his nose in there for some rebounds. Harmon's a good rebounding guard. I think those are some things that can really help you in terms of winning basketball games.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a great year. Another expectation year for the Illini, which is a whole lot more fun to cover for Derek and I. You will see him all this season. Pre-game shows will be across the map, except for a couple of games there.
I'd be taking a little bit of a baby leave.
A baby break. How about
right.
that for Derek? So, Derek, thanks so much for joining us, as always.
Always fun, man.